Hey guys, Montel here, and welcome to this edition of Let's Be Blunt with Montel. Today's Let's Be Blunt, we're going to be delving into the world of cannabis in the heart of our nation, Washington, D.C. Initiative 59, a voter-endorsed ballot from 1998 that set out to give legal status to medical cannabis. Despite a sweeping 69% vote in favor, the Barr Amendment by Congress held its implementation back by barring the use of D.C.'s funds for it. This caused the medical marijuana program to get rolling only in 2009 for the first legal purchase of medical marijuana in 2013 in a dispensary in D.C. Later, in 2014, Initiative 71 got approved, legalizing possession of small amounts of cannabis, which kick-started in 2025. Our esteemed guest has been advocating for D.C. marijuana justice since 2016 and is a flourishing cannabis entrepreneur since 2018, owner of the renowned DC Edibles business and a thriving screenwriter and co-host of the host of Cannabis Speakeasy, Lisa Scott. Welcome. Thanks so much for being a part of Let's Be Blunt today.
All right. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. You know, I was very much involved in DC way back in the very early. As a matter of fact, I think I was working with a company back then that got awarded one of the first DC licenses, though I ended up breaking off a relationship with that company, and they went on to try to open up its facilities, and I got away from them. But let's begin with your story. Let's talk a little bit about, are you a DC native?
No, I'm not a native, but I've been here long enough. I've lived here longer than anywhere else, so about 35 years. Yep.
All right, give me some more information about your background. What did you do? Where'd you grow up?
I'm from rural Pennsylvania and in the boonies, actually. Really tiny town. Population never went over 200 people. So wow. It was, one of the tiniest towns.
Sure. Where'd you go to school? Did you go to college?
Yeah, I went to school there, and then I went to the University of Delaware. That's where I guess President Biden went, but of course not at the same time.
Okay.
Sure. And then I came down here to DC because I had some family down here, and I've been here ever since.
And you got there what year? When did you get there?
Early 90s, 92, something like that.
92? Okay, yeah. So now share with us your journey with cannabis. I mean, what got you interested in the whole cannabis movement?
Yeah, well, I was never really involved with cannabis at all. And when they passed Initiative 71, I had a colleague of mine who knew that, I had a history I was a catering chef. And, I cooked a lot. And she's like, hey, do you know how to make pot brownies? And I'm like, no, but I can figure it out. And so we experimented and things like that with the brownies, because that's, the most recognized edible from long ago. And, we started giving them out to people. There were a lot of cannabis events around the city, and people were just showing up. And so we were giving out.
What year was this?
That must have been 2016.
Okay, but let me go back a little bit before that. So you were not involved with cannabis as an entrepreneur or anything before 2016?
No, not at all. Nothing.
Okay. And so then you got involved in it basically just to see if you can grab a niche in the market. But I want to talk about the DC market in itself, because I remember, literally testifying and also speaking before a council that was, awarding the licenses back when they first started to come about. It took a long time. I mean, DC awarded not licenses, and then it took a long time for them to actually implement this. Okay. I guess when you got involved, it was already now implemented and ready to go. But there's some really intricacies about the DC law. Can you take us through a little bit of that, or do you know it?
Yeah, I do. They opened up the medical marijuana program, and they're very cautious about every little step of the way. And it was, they had a bill, and they had every few months they had to make more amendments because, when they originally opened it, I mean, they only allowed the cultivators to grow 100 plants total. And it was like, that wasn't enough. They had no idea really what the program was going to look like. So, they kept making amendments, but the entryway to get in was really difficult. You really pretty much everybody who got in had to have at least $1 million of cash money to get started, and you had to have so many things in place before they would give you the license.
So, Lisa, tell me a little bit about the licenses. Are there multiple different types of licenses? Like you have a completely vertical license for growing, processing, distribution, or do you have a growing, processing, then you had to get a dispensary license? And you said you work in edibles, so was there a separate edible or kitchen license? Explain to me what's going on.
Yeah, well,
And one more thing, explain this whole idea about what's happening because I've heard some things about DC. I've never purchased some cannabis there, but I've heard about you have to go in and you have to buy something else, and then you're really not buying cannabis, you're buying the other thing, and they can give you a gift of cannabis. What is this?
right, right. Well, actually, when I said started out with making brownies, right? And we were giving them away. We were going to these events, and they're like, "Well, you can't sell them." So how it actually started was we said, "Okay, well, let's create our own event," and we did. We created an event, and hundreds of people showed up, and we were just selling our brownies and other edibles we were making, and there were other people with their products and things like that, but the money was just flowing, and I was like,
When you say you were selling your brownies, I thought you just said you couldn't sell it.
yeah,
So you
well,
could charge for the event.
we had our own little private event, and it was, yeah, yes, it was a loophole that we found in the law. So we had found these socks that had cannabis leaves on it. So we were selling a pair of socks. You buy a pair of socks and you can get whatever cannabis you want. So the socks could be, $10 or they could be $100, depending on
Wow.
what you wanted gifted to you.
So
So
that's so strange. So I could go buy a pair of socks and get a couple pre-rolls and get a couple brownies and get some other edibles,
right,
but
but you're only buying the socks.
I'm buying the socks, and when I add it up with the pre-rolls and the edibles all cost, that's the price of my socks.
Right, the socks could be, they could be $400,
Is
or
that
they could
still
be
what's going on
or they could
today?
be $10.
Is that
Uh,
still what's going on today?
it is still going on today. However, it technically it's not legal, but because it's kind of a loophole situation, they couldn't really crack down on it. Because if you could show proof that they paid for the socks, there's nothing they can do about it. So we started that, and it blossomed. We were doing it the first day we did it. I was able to make a mortgage payment, and I'm like, wow! In 4 hours, I made a mortgage payment. This is where I need to be. So we continued to do these pop-ups, and then other people were like, oh my God, we need to do these pop-ups too, because they were so successful, and it just got full blown here in DC. It was wild actually, and they were all over the city. And the city, there was nothing they could do because they're all private parties, private events. But they, eventually started busting some of them because they were doing them in bars and restaurants, and they definitely couldn't have those in those bars and restaurants.
Right, because bars and restaurants were not considered dispensaries. I mean, does DC have a dispensary system or no?
Yeah, they have a dispensary system in the medical program, but there's only maybe 6 or 7 dispensaries.
And those dispensaries, can they sell cannabis, or they still have to sell socks or
No,
whatever?
they can sell cannabis. They could sell it straight, with have to get a medical marijuana card.
Got it.
So they can keep track of everything you buy. And, a lot of people don't want people to know that they're on this list and buying this and that. So, they're willing to go, we call it the gray market, because
And that's really where you are, is in a gray market. It's
we're
not a
still in
black
the gray
market.
market, and we were
Right.
fighting for years. And then COVID hit, of course, so the pop-ups really stopped completely because everything was shut down. And then after COVID kind of lifted, people were like putting up brick and mortar stores. So they were all popping up all over the city.
And the brick and mortar stores were, again, stores that were selling
A gift,
other
something,
products,
other
something.
items, and in gifting the cannabis. Yes.
And could you buy? Remember, it was somebody was telling me you couldn't even really buy paraphernalia, meaning you couldn't walk into a store that sold pipes and get a gift of cannabis, but you could walk in and buy a scarf and get a gift of cannabis, right?
Well, no, I mean, it could be anything.
Okay,
You could do
okay,
the
got it.
pipe. if you wanted to. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so that happened. And, over the time post COVID, the number of stores just went crazy. There's probably 150, DC's a small city, maybe 150 stores.
And you didn't have to get a cannabis license for that store. You had to get just a
Just a
license to be a
regular
vendor.
license, and some places didn't have even have a license. They were
Wow.
just open because,
Wow.
yeah. So it got crazy, and the city was trying to crack down, and we pushed back. Hey, everybody, we just want to be entrepreneurs. Okay. We're not trying to be criminals. We're not trying to be thugs and street drug traders. We just want to be in this new industry, because because of Congress having control over the DC budget and the DC laws. They had this rider on the budget that kept us from opening up an adult use retail business.
Okay.
So the city couldn't shut down. They tried. We kept pushing back, and they decided to find their own loophole in the medical marijuana program. And so they lifted the cap on the medical marijuana program, said anybody who wants to apply can now apply. There's no competitiveness to it. You don't have to have everything in place. And they were reserving half of those licenses, new licenses, to social equity applicants. So anyone who was harmed personally, or someone in their immediate family who may have been arrested or jailed or imprisoned for drug use, is applicable, can apply as a social equity applicant.
And I know you probably looked at what transpired yesterday. I guess President Bush issued a executive order basically expunging the record of anybody who was arrested for cannabis on federal land, federal property. DC is considered, even though it's a district, it is federal land, right? Because you're under the auspices
Well,
of Congress. Huh? I'm just trying to figure out how that's going to work out.
We have maps of DC that are DC property and federal property. So there is a big difference. And most of the people that have been arrested were not on federal property.
Okay, so that's how they're differentiating. So, okay, gotcha.
Right. So we actually did some advocacy events where we would be on a private property that was right next to federal property, and we could do all of our stuff and everything. And they really basically couldn't touch us because we were on DC property.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So, I mean, how does and again, I'm trying to figure out, is DC a medical territory or a adult use territory?
It's a legal medical territory. Adult use is okay because you can grow your own in your home, and you can indulge in your home. So you can have it. You just can't make money from it.
Directly.
Yeah,
but you can
figure
it out, right?
Right, exactly. Well, yeah, that's the loophole we found. But so now they opened the door to the medical marijuana program, and they created new licenses. Before the medical program, only the cultivators could make the concentrates and the edibles and things like that. But we're like, most of them were in warehouses that didn't have kitchens. So they couldn't make edibles, and most of them didn't. I think maybe one cultivator made edibles. So there's really only a few options for edibles in the legal dispensaries, which made my business as an edible maker, Bon Appetit, very lucrative, and other edible makers, because a lot of new people, or people who want to get back into indulging with cannabis for whatever reason, recreational or just for health benefits, they might not want to smoke, but they know how to eat, because we all know how to eat.
Sure.
So eating is easier. You don't have to learn how to smoke, and you can eat a gummy or a cookie, or, put some honey, infused honey or something with your food, and, get the health benefits.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And so now, I mean, would you describe the DC market as robust? Would you describe it as, and what about, I guess you have to have a card to be a part of the medical community. However, you could still go to one of these other stores and not have a card, or now because they've expanded the number of dispensaries. I don't get it. You're traveling. I want my people who are watching this, if you happen to be going to DC next week, and somebody says, well, you're going to pick something up, what do they got to do?
Yeah, it's a little crazy. They did open the door. Anybody with a medical card from any other state can come and use and buy in our legal dispensaries.
Okay.
But we have all these illegal brick and mortar stores, and most people have absolutely no idea that they aren't legal.
Got it.
But because the city is allowing them to remain open while they find a pathway for them to become legal. So that's what we advocated for. We insisted, and they caved, and they created a bill that allows now everybody who wants to be into the business can easily apply, and they made it affordable for everyone. Um, so now we have a lot of applicants actually in the manufacturing and the cultivation, probably 150 applicants.
Wow.
And then in the retail stores, we have about 75 applicants to date.
Waiting to get their license and opportunity to do so.
Exactly.
Got it. Well, let's talk a little bit about you. You mentioned your brand, which is Bon Appetit, right? Let's
Yes.
talk a little bit about that and how people get more information about it. Is there a website?
Yeah, bonappetitedibles.com is my website. I did apply for a manufacturing license and a cultivation license because I do grow my own. I've been growing my own and making the edibles from my own grow. I don't use any outside sources or anything, so I know 100% that it's organic and everything that goes into all the products that I make. And Bon Appetit is a very cool name. A few years ago, when the pop-ups were happening, I actually rented a little mansion on Capitol Hill. I mean, right on Capitol. I was right next door to a senator, half a block from the Hart Senate building. And
Did they stop by and buy some product? No,
yeah, yeah. Well, they could have.
I'm sure the age may have bounced in.
Yeah, I called it House 51. Like Area 51. Nobody knows
Sure.
what's going on, and we held secret parties there, and it was a lot of fun. And we're like, this is the life. This is the way people want to relax, and it was safe and it was fun. And I'm also a screenwriter, like you said, and I said, this is so much fun, I should be writing it down. So I did. I wrote it down as a television series called Bon Appetit, and like the first underground cannabis cafe in the nation's capital. And I produced a proof of concept pilot, and I'm trying to get the show out there.
Wow. And have you gotten any interest?
I have not gotten enough interest to get me where I need to go. But I've been continuing to work on it, and with the streaming and the cable, there's a lot of room for more stories out there. And there's not any really good weed shows right now, so we need to get that on.
Yeah, I have a feeling that you'll find that just Hollywood doesn't ever actually set trends; they follow trends, and as we look at what's happening in in the legal world, I would venture to say that in the next 7 or 8 months, the DEA is going to step up to the plate and do what they should have done years ago, and that's at least reschedule, and reschedule Schedule 3. That'll make this a product that can be talked about rather than having to be ignored. You know what I'm saying? So it may open more opportunities for you once that happens.
Yeah, I hope so. That would be great. That would definitely be great.
And again, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I mean, there have been shows like Weeds and High Maintenance and
yeah, but unfortunately, I think a lot of the programming that's been out there to date when it comes to cannabis has just been, again, more stoner culture rather than the opportunity to discuss something that's a needed product. Let's figure it out here. Come on, we have 38 states of District of Columbia right now that have some form of cannabis program, and we're still joking about it as if it's some sort of a joke, and it really isn't a joke behind it. It's just another way and method of people, relieving pain or easing anxiety. So as long as I think we don't go after it from the just, and I'm not putting down other people. I'm just saying that there are multiple perspectives. There are a lot of people who are getting into this don't consider themselves a stoner. They consider themselves, taking care of themselves holistically.
True. I'm one of those people. I was struck with a severe case of arthritis, and it just my knees were crazy. I was actually wearing braces on my knees, to work and to do anything. And I couldn't even sleep through the night. I would wake up 4 or 5 times. I moved my knee and it felt like someone was stabbing my knee. So I couldn't even have a good night's sleep. So I started infusing honey and drinking a cup of tea with honey in it. And the first time I tried it, I woke up at 8 o'clock and I'm like, all night. I slept all night. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, what just happened? I
Right.
mean, this stuff is fantastic. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's great. And I'm really a strong advocate for Mother Nature, actually, because if it grows it in Mother Nature, I mean, there must be a purpose for it.
Absolutely. And and in the DC market now, I mean, you did address the fact that 50% of the licenses have to go to a social equity program. Do you think that they are literally adhering to the social equity thing, or are they just finding people of color to put their faces on the name of the license to move it forward?
No, you have to show proof that you or someone in your family had been arrested or jailed or imprisoned. And, I mean, there was a time when everybody was getting, I, knock on wood, never was arrested, but I know a lot of people who have. And it actually was pretty serious because some of the the security of it was bad because it was still an illicit market that everybody was dealing with. So if you had some kind of issue or someone was trying to rob you or whatever or shake you down, you couldn't call the police for help because you were doing something illicit yourself. And also, if the police came, and I know that some people, the police just took their stuff and said, "Okay, go." And so now the police had your product. They didn't arrest you, and they were just being their own crooks, and they don't want to admit it, but that's what happens.
And I'm sure that product found its way back into the marketplace somehow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, now tell me a little bit about, how are they expanding on it? What is the DC Cannabis Business Association?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, when I there was some rumors that Congress was going to lift the rider, this clampdown on us to keep us from having an open market was going to be lifted. Everybody was getting excited, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to start this trade association so that when we get our licenses, and we can work together and create this new industry, and it be safe and secure for everyone, and create guidelines for our consumers and for our entrepreneurs, to do everything safely and secure. And but the rider wasn't lifted, so we were still doing advocacy for 2 or 3 more years. The rider's still there because Congress, had this Trump problem that they had to deal with, and they just didn't really care about the DC residents. So it's still there on the books, and they found a loophole to open the door by allowing us to get in without having to have a lot of money, um, which is great. And they really, really did a great job, actually, because when you compare it to other states, like Maryland is right here. Um, if you want to get a cultivator's license here, the license fee is $11,000. Um, in Maryland, it's $125,000. So that's crazy. Most people can't afford $125,000. Plus, you need to have the land or the warehouse if you're going to grow inside. DC, we don't have any land that's open. Uh, it's all federal. like you
Right.
said. So we have to grow indoors. So we have to grow warehouse. And right now, that's our biggest problem is there's not enough available warehouse space and affordable warehouse space for all the applicants. So we've been fighting right now with, well, not fighting, but trying to get the zoning and the licensing board to work together to relax some of the requirements of where we can grow and manufacture the products.
And having shown, I guess now for what, 10 years, well, not 10 years, but for 7 years, the ability to do this safely without, the sky falling, I would think that that's
True.
something that would push them in the right direction, right? You
Right,
hope it.
right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, they do talk about the rise in crime, which is actually all over the country, with carjackings and
And
car
that has
and
nothing.
retail, but none of
Chances,
that has anything to do with cannabis.
yeah, chances are, you're not gonna find too many people out there who are using cannabis who are robbing, killing, and
No,
building
in fact,
for
the exact opposite. We're like, "Hey,
right.
here, let's
Yeah, go
let's
ahead, man.
share it
Take
and
it.
have a good time together," right?
Right, absolutely. Most people are, I think that you're finding that, less violence takes place in places that there is more cannabis, and where we still have, the ability to do other substances. That's where some of that violence comes in at. If people wanted to find out more about what you do, where would they go? Give it out again.
Yeah, DC Cannabis Business Association.org. We are a nonprofit, and we're open for anybody who wants to become licensed. We have regular town hall meetings about every month, and we invite ABCA, which is the licensing board, and they come and they participate, which is great because they have all the answers that we can't answer about licensing and all the things that are coming. And they've been wonderful, actually, and working with us so that we can get it right. Because after they did pass the bill, they've had to make several amendments to the bill that they passed
Got
because
it.
they rolled it out really quickly. But every step of the way, we find new issues that have come up.
Right, right. So now tell me, what do you got? What do you have on the horizon? Anything coming down the pike?
Well, right now we're still in the middle of, just trying to get people licensed.
Got
Um,
it.
we have most of the licenses are conditional until you get a location. So I think that's the biggest problem. If you can't get a location, you can't open up shop, you can't grow, you can't manufacture.
And
So
you still can't. Can you? Is there any cross business cooperation? Meaning, like, okay, so I got a license, so I can have a brick and mortar that I can provide product to the consumer from. Can I get my product from a third party, or I have to grow my own? Period.
well, you can grow your own. That's an option, but there are different licenses. There's the cultivation license, the manufacturing license, the courier licenses, and the retail licenses.
Got it.
So the retail licenses right now, there's about 75 or 76 applicants, but they can't actually open and stock their shelves until the manufacturing and the cultivators get up and running because everything has to be grown and produced in the District of Columbia.
Got it. But I'm saying, like, if let's say somebody wanted to open up their own retail shop and they came to you and you were growing. So what if I came to you and said, look, you know what, you got your own thing, you do your thing over here. I'll just take your product and put it on my shelves and I'll sell it over here. Can you
Exactly.
do that? Or you can't do that.
I can do that, but
Okay.
I can do that when I find a location and start growing. So I don't have that right now. I'm still looking
Oh,
myself.
oh wow. Okay. I got you. I got
Yeah.
you. All right. Cool.
Yeah,
So
but once that happens, I mean, we can all do that. We can wholesale to all the retail stores. There's plenty of retail stores. It is a small city, but the city really relies a lot on tourists. And
yes,
I mean, people come here from all over the world. They come here for the Smithsonian, politics, and now the weed.
There you go. All right, for sure. Well, again, throw out your stats one more time. People want to get a hold of you and find out what's happening. Where's the best place for them to go?
dccannabisbusinessassociation.org,
And
or
ask for you.
that's the nonprofit. If you're an entrepreneur and you want to get some more information about how to get your license, you have some questions or issues, we have a whole board of people with different skill sets that can help you with. And if you want some edibles, you can contact me at budappetitedibles.com.
All right, for sure. Well, thank you so much, Lisa, for being a part of the show today. And at some point in time, if you ever want to come back and share some more, we'd love to have you. Okay.
That would be great. I mean, especially when I get the TV show off the ground, that would be wonderful.
There you go. Okay. Well, reach back out to us. Okay. And if you need some help in that arena, let me know, because we might be able to help at least shuttle you around in Hollywood to see if we can find you a place that people are willing to listen.
Okay, that'd be great. I appreciate
All right,
that.
now.
Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am, for sure. Thank you. And you keep tuning in to Let's Be Blunt with Montel. Thanks for joining me on Let's Be Blunt with Montel. Please make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell to be notified when new episodes post each week. We'd love to hear your feedback also, so please send us your comments.